Hey Sam,
Hey, good afternoon, good evening.
let me put a reminder in the group to see if more people joins. So let me copy Telegram.
Hi, Victor.
Hey,
Hi,
let
Sam.
me-
Hello.
hello, how are you?
Yeah, I'm coming to the end of my working week.
Yeah, same here. It's
Yeah.
been busy for me. How about you?
um, Well,
Well, it's
Yeah.
all busy. It's always busy weeks.
Yeah.
and so many people on leave during the holiday season, then you have to do your work as well as their work.
I think
Uh,
this is recording already, and the companion is here. Just in case. Awesome. Let's wait a few more minutes and not we can discuss between us. I would assume I will have to check about the timings because I'm not sure what this is a good time for us, even though people voted. We'll see. Because
I'm very
later,
excited for this weekly connect. Coming
yeah.
get together. I love the initiative, and I think you're the first one who's doing like community calls. Uh,
No, the FinOps Connect one, they are doing one monthly as well. So
uh,
I took the idea from them. I just made it weekly because I think it's
uh,
easier to maintain the cadence. But yeah.
yeah, that's very cool. I haven't seen any other community, but that's very cool.
Yeah. And
Thanks for
Victor,
that.
you were mentioning that you are planning to hold it on 14th December on Saturday, right?
Sorry, can you
What
repeat?
made you? Yeah, yeah. So this community call, you wanted to kick it off because you had reinvent and there is some holiday in your country and you wanted to have this meeting tomorrow.
No, no, no. I wanted to start it the previous week, so last Friday.
Oh,
But
okay.
because there was a public holiday in Spain,
Mhm.
plus there
Okay.
was the reinvent week, I didn't want to start it on the 6th. And that's why it started today and not the other one because it was public holiday for me, so I was in outside, so I couldn't basically be on Friday. But other than that, it's going to be every Friday. Um,
Okay.
so it's easier for everyone to join, unless there is problems with the timing, which we can then modify. Even though I will have to check with the agenda because it's not that easy to to fit everything. But yeah, um, and that's it. So just to give an update. I don't know if more people is going to join, but um, to give an update is that we are working on 2025 and see about the events. Yesterday we talked. Well, I talked in the Berlin meetup, and that was there. There is no recording. I will share the slides probably in LinkedIn soon about my presentation. I was talking a bit about 2025 and what is missing and the main problems that we have right now. I will be talking about the engineers not having too much technical content and also AI stuff and sustainability and all these trends. So I think it was an interesting call because I was joining remotely, so I am not in Berlin, I'm in Spain. But I joined remotely thanks to Shasa setup. So I think it was a great idea because I was remotely there. And I think it was a wonderful evening as far as I know. So yeah, that was fun. Then tomorrow I will announce the winners of the giveaway that we were doing. So we were giving away the Cloud Efficient FinOps book. So I will announce that tomorrow. And today is the Brazil meetup as well. So we'll see how that goes.
Mhm.
Even though I won't be able because it's like, I don't know, 1 a.m. or something around those lines. So I just have to join to start the meeting, and then I won't be there. And let me think about that as well, just in case. I would like to see if
Yeah,
then I can have events, but go ahead, go
yeah,
ahead.
I'll just take this liberty to introduce myself.
Yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
Victor and
That was
Isam.
what I'm
This is
going
my name.
to
Yeah,
say. So yeah.
My name is Anshuman. If you have trouble pronouncing it, it rhymes with Spider-Man, Batman. Okay. So I'm based in India. I work as a cloud solution architect in Rackspace,
Awesome.
and I am trying to learn FinOps. So
Okay.
hopefully this will be a good forum to learn. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you.
And
Is Anshuman?
Anshu.
Anshu.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Anshuman. Yeah,
Right.
that's fine.
And we are
Isam, do you?
connected on LinkedIn, and I'm also part of the Telegram group. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
With you on LinkedIn. Yeah. Yes. So I'll introduce also myself. My name is Isam. I'm currently working as a cloud FinOps analyst. I'm located in Brno, Czech Republic. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
this is not my first, but somehow my first technical job. I used to work previously in IT processes, and I come from a mechanical and aerospace engineering background, and it's like something new for me. FinOps, and I'm very excited. Like I have few AWS certificates, and now I'll start focusing more on FinOps certifications.
Awesome. Awesome. No, that's interesting backgrounds. The one from Anshu is more, I think it's more common because everyone is coming from cloud to more specialized into FinOps. Your case is interesting, like having the background, even though I've seen, like I've met a lot of people here as well that come from technical, well, technical, let's say more mechanical, aerospace, all this stuff, type of careers, then switch into more, development and technical, let's say, code related tasks. So it's also interesting.
Yeah, it's quite cool. It can be challenging a bit because
Yeah.
you're trying to build a new career from scratch and you have no idea where to start and which path to follow. But
Mm-hmm.
at some point, once you give it your time and dedication, things will be more clear down the road. So it's quite interesting. Like it's my first technical job
Mm-hmm.
as FinOps analyst. So yeah, I'm learning a lot on daily basis.
And what are your, because that could be probably interesting for people. What are the tasks that you are usually doing in your day-to-day basis?
Like monthly reporting, a bit of automation, finding new initiatives for developing processes, working on dashboards, trying to implement more focus-oriented frameworks, um, cloud monitoring, optimization, working with teams. So, like FinOps is quite comprehensive. It includes like technical and non-technical expertise,
Mm-hmm.
but you can learn those while doing it.
Awesome. Yeah, yeah, no, it makes sense. It's interesting because I think people would like to know about like what's your day to day of a FinOps analyst. So that would be interesting. I may ask you then later to have something, written or something because, or I can use the transcript to see that because I think it's a useful information for people as well.
Like it depends on which company, also from what I've noticed.
Mm-hmm.
In my case, it's a bit more flexible because I get to choose what I want to do.
Yeah.
But the daily tasks aren't at some point predefined. So
Mm-hmm.
working on defining what should where our end goal is or what our target will be using FinOps, in the FinOps frameworks. Um, yeah, so it's quite cool. Now I'm working a bit more on technical things, and I'm trying to focus a bit on the focus data sets.
Yeah.
It's been quite challenging and at the same time interesting because there are a lot of things and a lot of initiatives that we can take and a lot of things that we can implement, not just in process wise, also in what the FinOps Foundation has to offer.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, there is a lot of in the with the focus initiative. There is a lot of work to do and a lot of things to learn. I also highlighted it yesterday about something that everyone should learn if it's related to analysis of data or if they are handling with FinOps data at any point, which you would probably be almost, unless you are doing a scripting job or a DevOps optimization job, which I am in that case I'm doing. But if you are doing like FinOps, pure FinOps and data analyst kind of jobs, then you need to learn Focus like today because otherwise, I think it's going to be a standard for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I've been playing around with the data like this past week
Uh-huh.
with FinOps, with Focus.
Mm-hmm.
There's tons of things, and you need to know what makes more sense, the most sense for you, you know. And like everything, of course, makes sense, but you have to start somewhere, and you have to start like small. Choose what makes sense the most. Work with,
Mm-hmm.
experiment with the data. It's quite fun. And I've also noticed like you can have also a dashboard from Focus, directly. The Focus
Yeah.
dashboard. It's quite interesting. I love the idea of it. We'll also start working on that. So
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's great. No. It's really something that we should definitely focus our work and definitely think about it as probably next year there should be more content. I think the foundation, and I will probably say it on the this week newsletter. They have released something that is very interesting for people to learn, and I will share it because I just found it today. I was scrolling with my sources and then I found it, something related to focus. And so I think there is a lot of effort there. Is going to probably be a standard in the industry for because I think the providers already made it, and I think it's easier for everyone. And it was something that it was extremely asked by anyone that deals with billing data, which is like crucial. There were companies made out of normalizing data, normalizing billing data. So now that this the standard here is like doesn't make any sense to use that kind of tools, and you can develop things on your own. But yeah, that was great. So Anshu, what do you tend to do as well in your in your daily basis, and what are you focusing right now on FinOps?
Okay, so I am working as a cloud solution architect, and my role is aligned as part of the go-to-market or the sales function.
Mm-hmm.
And as you know, Rackspace has its own cloud, private cloud, which is based on OpenStack. Then
Yeah.
Rackspace also provides hosting services based on VMware's private cloud. Then we also are a managed service provider for AWS and Azure and GCP. So I am part of the public cloud, business unit. I work with EMEA customers, so UK, German-speaking countries, Northern Europe, Middle East. So I partner with my sales colleagues, and we carry out discovery meetings with the customers. Sometimes it is an existing customer, sometimes it is a government new customer. There is an RFP. So and we try to put a solution which is matching the technical and commercial requirement of the customer. So the customer exiting that data center, going to the cloud for the first time, or they are in AWS and because of some reason they need to go to Azure or GCP. So cloud to cloud, data center to cloud, those kind of migrations. So there will be a big multi-year project having landing zone, migrations, modernizations, everything. So my job is to architect it and
Mm-hmm.
uh, how much it is going to cost in AWS and Azure, and how much it is going to cost to build it. So what will be the manpower? What will be the time requirement? What are the risks? So all these are my part of the work. In terms of commercial consideration, I prepare the cost calculator, like AWS cost calculator or Azure cost calculator. And of course, there is some assumptions. Maybe it's a production workload, it runs 24/7. It is a non-production workload, it runs only
Yeah.
5 days a week. So that kind of analysis I do. and let's say we are a managed services provider, and once the client AWS or Azure estate comes under my company's tenant, we have a product around cloud health, PMOS cloud health, so the customer
Mm-hmm.
can access their monthly invoices on cloud health dashboards, and we can tell them what is the optimizations available, and if it is a GP2 to GP3 migration or those kind of things come in the picture. But it is fairly on the TCO side, like customer is either going to cloud for the first time or just modernizing. But FinOps,
Mm-hmm.
I think, is after you are already in cloud, what you are doing with it. So
Yeah.
that's what I wanted to understand from this, because many of the FinOps concept, like it is a operating expenses, it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't really translate to on-prem. On-prem, you buy a server, after 5 years you retire a server, you buy a new server or a storage box. So those kind of concepts don't straight away apply to cloud or vice versa. So this is something new for me to learn.
Yeah, I mean, there are the two things. Like we should probably start considering cost before we are going to the cloud. So doing the budgeting and the what the work that
Right,
you do.
right,
So like the total cost of ownership, in terms of what the solution is going to be and how much it's going to cost you just to migrate it and to actually run it, like the running costs. And then on-prem is different, but because you know there are I believe that in on-prem there are certain things that you don't count on as well. So for example,
yeah,
the electric cost
right,
that your server has, or the networking kind of
correct,
traffic, or the manpower that you need to
right,
maintain things. So I believe that that's where FinOps can come into an end. It's like being able to support if the standard is able to support both, so both the on-prem and the cloud is going to be great because as well most of the large companies use a hybrid
definitely, yeah,
approach. So you need to a way to unify those costs together. So I believe that's why
yes,
focus is
yes,
now oriented to on-prem and SaaS and all of this is because all so we the direction we are going, I think, is to have a unified version of your IT costs
correct, correct,
whenever they happen. So that would be easier to develop because after all, if it's not licensing, it's a SaaS, or licensing could be a subscription as well. Then or it's cloud or it's on-prem. There is nothing else, I believe, and then it's manpower, of course. So
yeah,
I think the goal is to unify everything because the ecosystem is going to be complex and combined, and it's
right,
not going to be either full cloud or full on-prem or not. Before it was like that, but now I think that they
yes,
understood it pretty well that this is going to be a
yeah,
combined
yeah,
environment.
yeah. I have a question for you, Isam, if you don't mind. So,
Course.
it is about your professional journey, right? So when I was trying to get into a role into a cloud company, cloud focused company, I'm talking about 2020, 2021. So I was working with HP, so I knew data center stuff, server, storage, backup, and DR, RTO, RPO, all those disaster recovery, high availability, resiliency, all those things was part of my day-to-day work. But I did not know cloud. I tried to learn some certification. I found Azure to my liking, so I did Azure certification. Still, at that time, it was not good enough. They needed someone who actually works in cloud before they can give you a cloud job. But
Yeah.
somehow I found this company which has its own data center and has some public cloud. So my skills were somehow transferable. And in Rackspace, I learned cloud, public cloud, so to speak. So, and how was your journey been? Like you are coming from a different background. How easy or difficult for you to get this FinOps analyst job?
Well, it was quite challenging at first, because I'm coming from a completely different domain. I didn't even know what Linux was at some point. Like I knew, but I've never worked with it. I didn't know what cloud does. I just upload my photos from my phone to Google Cloud or like Drive or
Yeah.
whatever. So it was
Yeah.
quite challenging. But to be honest, I first when I decided to move to a more IT stuff, software and whatnot, I took a Udemy course for DevOps because I didn't want to be a
Mhm.
software engineer. And usually we follow, like, as everybody, we follow trends. Like, you want to start something, you don't know where to start. Like, I come from an engineering background, so I know C++, I've worked with Arduino, but it's not
Mhm.
transferable to find a full-time job in that specific domain. So I took a DevOps course. I learned everything, from Kubernetes, Docker, AWS, Linux commands, Vagrant, what's on-prem, how to move to the cloud, how to do lift and shift, how to refactor. Apologies. So it was like more of online courses. I learned a lot. There was tons of projects that you have to do. So I had like an overall view of what the technologies are and how to work with it. Then I took another course that continuation of this one. It took me like a year to finish them both because I was very dedicated to it. So it was demanding new concepts that you need time, and I was doing it in parallel with my full-time job. I was working at Infosys, more of like IT support. So it was quite challenging to have them both in parallel. And after I finished those courses, I said, okay, I need to validate my skills in certifications. So I did the AWS foundational cloud practitioner.
Yep.
Mhm.
And I thought like it's quite easy because once I took the DevOps course, I fully understood cloud, because you deploy everything over there, combine services together, it was quite interesting. Then I did the solutions architect. It was a bit harder,
Mm-hmm.
but also because I did those courses, it was quite easy, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm planning on doing the SysOps admin because I think it's more towards focus. I will also add towards FinOps. So I did a lot of projects on my own. I didn't have any professional experience or working experience in it. I just self-studied everything. It took me a while. It took me like 2 years to not to fully understand, but to fully have an overall view of what can I expect in the workplace. Um, then I started seeing FinOps. It was hard to find a technical job, to be honest, especially if you're self-studying. So after I found FinOps, uh, I started looking into that, and I landed this job like 5 months ago. I started like 5 months ago in FinOps, and it's going like quite nice. You get to work with technical stuff and non-technical things. So so yeah, that's and I love the cloud, and I prefer AWS over Azure. It's a bit more comprehensive, and it gives you like a holistic view of whatever you want. Like I'm working also in Azure right now, but I'd prefer AWS.
Mhm.
So I'm also excited for the focus thing, focus specification. I started working with it like a month to see what we can extract from it. It's very quite interesting. And the thing is, I'm not finding a lot of content for. Of course, there's tons of content online, for FinOps, but for daily work to work, what you can do, for example, if you're generating a report or guidance on what costs you should filter, what costs you shouldn't filter, it was quite challenging at first, to know what you are looking at because there's tons of data, especially if you're working with huge AWS accounts and there's tons of services, or also in Azure.
Mm-hmm.
So that part was quite challenging at first, especially if you're directly starting at FinOps and you haven't worked, you don't have like working experience, you have like project wise. But I'm glad I did it. It eventually paid off, and the work is very quite interesting. I hope I answered your
Great, great.
question because
Yes, yes.
I spoke.
And I also worked with Infosys earlier, so we have that thing in common. Yes, it was my first job. I was a programmer before I became a solution architect.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, I worked in Infosys in Brno branch, and yeah, I worked there for 3 years approximately. So yeah, like I gained a lot of experience on how to work with teams because most of the FinOps right now you have to work with different teams and they're not all located in with you and
Yeah.
they are online. So it was quite nice.
And Victor, your newsletter is awesome. I must compliment you for that.
Okay, thanks for that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Really, really good insights, and kudos to you for keeping up week after week after week.
Nah, it's been easier. I think the struggle is at the beginning. I mean, when there was 20 subscribers or 50 subscribers, it's not that you don't value them, it's that this you don't see the reactions of people, even though there were like a lot of. So what it keep me running is that is something that is almost easy for me and natural for me. I enjoy doing it. And then more people started subscribing, and there was a several push, and now we are like more than 3,000 people. So it's kind of crazy. And then when you are at this point, is it's something that will keep rolling until I retire of the ecosystem, which I don't think I will. So I am aiming to make it as good as possible, and I am always looking for feedback. So if you have any feedback, either today or replying to the email or anything, is useful for me. And I say this to everyone, like I get to know some feedback about things to change and things to update, because otherwise for me it's impossible to know like beforehand. So any feedback that you guys see or have, please tell me either on the replies or
Mhm.
or the community, or on private, like you shoot me a DM on LinkedIn or Telegram, or reply to the email. I read all the replies, because when I mess up some links, people tell me, so I know that the replies are there, because that sometimes happens. But yeah, thanks for the kind words. It's really good.
And I wanted to know a bit more about your involvement in the FinOps Foundation. Like I suppose you are must be a member of that and part of some of the working groups or special interest groups.
Yeah, so in terms of working groups, I don't actually have time, so I am not participating in anyone specifically, because basically my time is now almost dedicated to the community stuff. So I'm not working and to gather the content. So I don't have time to yet to contribute. I would like to, but I don't have. Then as a member, in terms of memberships, I run as a practitioner, as an end user practitioner, because I work for another company. I have a daily job, so I joined
Hmm.
because of that. And then in terms of my involvement is not, let's say, so all the community initiatives are independent to the foundation thing. So we are not, let's say, connected or related in any kind, even though we speak and collaborate and talk frequently. But that's kind of my involvement in those topics
Hmm.
as of now. So for the foundation part, it's more of a practitioner kind of thing. Then all the things that I'm running in parallel is more of an independent, let's say, initiative that I run just to grow the newsletter ecosystem. That's kind of it. So because I wanted to see what's the continuation of the newsletter, because it's fine, and it's a useful tool, but then there are more people. So there are 3,000 people. I would like to know to do things with that amount of people, and to see what the community could drive, and all of that, because after all we are a large group of people. So we'll like to see how it goes.
Yeah, yeah. And I joined FinOps Foundation when it launched, like 2020. I somehow found it on LinkedIn. I thought it will be
Yeah.
something cool to learn. And when I got invited into the Slack group for the first time, this is 4 years back, and I was overwhelmed. The learning curve was very steep. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm just trying to go to cloud. They're already in cloud and doing so much stuff. So it was
Yeah.
overwhelming. And off late they have changed their policies and all. So I go lost access to the Slack group. Luckily, Damien invited me so that I have at least this group to interact with people who are actually working in FinOps. Yeah.
Yeah, no, no, that's what we are trying to do. What we are trying to see if people join in the community and see if more people join, so you can share it with your friends and any colleagues that you have, both newsletter and the community. I let me download that. DJ group. Okay. But yeah, it's great that you. I think it's needed to have like a space to for everyone to talk without restriction, well, without restriction of any kind. So a Telegram group that is, basically open for everyone, and you can have the link. And also because it's easier to manage and it's more, let's say, chat based, more relaxed. So you can talk about everything. And that's kind of it. So less structure. We want a community thing to happen naturally, unless someone misbehaves or does something that doesn't make sense in any way, and then it will be kicked out. But other than that, it's really difficult that I kick out someone else unless there's something weird, really weird happen. So unless there is a major conflict between someone, and I'll have to. I wouldn't like to do that. And otherwise, everyone is welcome, definitely.
Yeah, great. And good work with smart clouds as well. The chatbot
Yeah.
is really useful. But it spits out a lot of data. It's verbose text. It's difficult to scroll up and down and follow. There are code snippets, then there are some bullet points. It's a lot to digest sometimes. So I installed Telegram on my MacBook and I open
Uh-huh.
it on a big screen. I'm a millennial, all the important things need to happen on a big screen. So that's how it goes.
Yeah, the bot is something that we started working on as a POC, and it worked pretty nice. The main problem is that I wanted to give like good responses. The main problem is that good responses take long messages.
Yeah.
But it's something that is easy for us. It's making the effort, and it's working. And the system is working, so anyone can try and see. It's not something that costs us a lot of money, so it's
Mm-hmm.
easier for everyone to test. Unless it gets pretty expensive, and then we'll see if we need to charge. But at the moment, there is no problem for the users that we are having. And the good thing is people are using it and found it is useful. I mean, we will trim it out. We will probably see if we can make something more elaborated with some ingested content. So, improving the model itself, not improving it, but adding it some context specifically to FinOps, but we will work on that further in the year. This is something I wanted to test out, but I haven't tested out yet. Like how that works, how much it costs, etc., etc., and whether it makes sense or not, basically.
I have a question for you, Victor, if I may.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
So, do you think, or do you think for in general, like if somebody wants to get into the FinOps career in general,
Mhm.
do you think it's mandatory for them to have a technical background or to be working in cloud or whatever? Or do you
Depends on the role. Totally depends on the FinOps role that you are having. Let's say, so if you are oriented to cloud and you have to analyze billing data, if you have any experience analyzing data like Excel, I would go with that. Like it's just a bit more advanced systems, but you don't actually need to know a lot of cloud to be a FinOps analyst. I don't think it's just billing data. So if you are familiar with Excel, I don't know, checking finance reports or billing status, and you're fine with analyzing chunks of data. So you are a data scientist, something around those lines, and you want to focus on that. For analyst, I think it's easier because after all, what is anomaly detection, which is something that is applicable for a lot of tabular data, making reports, which is something that data science do, data normalization, exploratory data analysis. Those are exercises that I did when I was studying my master's degree on that. So anyone that has some technical background, but mostly related to data, can be a data analyst, a FinOps data analyst. Then for FinOps engineering role, yeah, I think you should have some technical background. So being cloud architect or cloud developer, someone that has been doing code in cloud to optimize costs, like to optimize Kubernetes clusters or things like that. You should have code experience or infrastructure experience for sure. Then for finance, you need finance. So there is the finance part that is all related to finance and to normalizing stuff. So there is definitely roles for everyone. And then to be a lead or FinOps, pure FinOps, let's say lead or someone, you would probably need some background of any of those. I would highlight either probably coming from a cloud architect perspective to translating into FinOps leading because it's more, I think it makes more sense to understand everything. But you also can lead from finance if you are familiar with, and you are able to lead from that side. But it really depends also on the company. It's not the same to lead FinOps in a bank that to lead FinOps in, I don't know, any service or end user company that is more related to, I don't know, Ryanair or something around those lines. The cloud cost is the same, but it's not the same background. Like you are not dealing with the same in a bank than with the same in Ryanair, even though cloud things are similar. But it really depends on how the FinOps, how large the company is, or how large the FinOps team is, because that's normally correlated. Because if you are in a small company, it's difficult. You would start from a cloud architect that needs to care about costs, and then from that probably you are moved to with the CCOE part, like the Cloud Center of Excellence, and then within the Cloud Center of Excellence you are in charge of FinOps, and then from that you have your own team of FinOps. That's kind of the transition. Like first is like you are in charge of cost because we are spending a lot and you are designing the architecture, which you need to do. Then it's like you are the part of the CCOE in charge of FinOps, and then you have your own team of FinOps, and then there are FinOps practitioners within the company. But that's kind of the transition I would see.
Cool, cool. Um, do you so yeah, so I understand like it's different depending first on the company or if you're a FinOps data analyst or if you're a FinOps engineer. But do you think there's like an optimal path for every FinOps should know, or it's just or it depends more on where do you start and what requires?
I don't think there is I mean, so one thing is to be a practitioner or the practitioner content. For just to give it's like to be able to know what's going on, like getting the whole picture. The practitioner level is something that makes sense. So to be part of a FinOps, you at least should be a practitioner to know, because you need to have the whole picture to apply FinOps. You need to know that there are the different personas, the different domains, the capabilities, what's going on. Like even though because that's not technical, or at least that's not technical for me, coming from a technical background. That's not technical at all. There are some here's and there, but those are terms, so those are very generic. So minimal requirement is that one. You can have or not the certification. That's not my problem, but you need to know the content. And then I think it really differs on the application. I think FinOps is too broad to be able to have like one optimal path. I would specialize in data analysis, engineering, or scripting, like pure code optimization. And then the management part, like leading, and then probably some part in product business. So KPIs, unit economics, all that part that I'll really like. But I'm not a product guy, but I like that the KPI, the numbers, because those are numbers that you can actually see and move and understand. I would split by kind of by track, you know. Otherwise, it's too broad. Like the practitioners, if you go through the certification, it's too broad. There is too much
Mm,
things going on, but it makes sense that you understand everything.
correct.
And then item, for example, all the item that doesn't, let's say, it's not the same that being an analyst or analyzing like billing data. And with item, you are managing like licensing costs and scheduling and making agreements, and all of that is totally a different job. So each of the roles should have their own track. Yeah, and it will get more specialized as more, let's say, grow more the more grow the sector gets, which I think it will, because more things are going to be in the cloud or in FinOps. Like probably if we go to the unification path that I mentioned, it's definitely something that will get better.
So just one final follow-up question.
Yeah.
So do you think they're gonna let's say FinOps engineer, or if you're a CCOE or a FinOps practitioner, you think they're gonna be like a separate, but at the same time they fall under the same umbrella of FinOps group, or
They will be roles. Like you, for example, you cannot dedicate to cloud and be everything in cloud. You can be a cloud data analyst, or you can be a cloud architect, or you can be a cloud developer, or you can be, I don't know, cloud storage, whatever, or a cloud network expert, right? There is a specific or specialties and separate issues in everything. In cloud, for example, there are the pillars, right? So in FinOps there are the personas. So each role will be part of it. There are two separate things. One is the FinOps central team, or as far as I know, this is how I understand the model for a large company. Like the idea model is that you have a FinOps team that is oriented to FinOps. So it's probably more into developing solutions for the FinOps company, or understanding solutions that the FinOps providers do. And then there are practitioners within the company. So like, I don't know, from the, let's say, product X, someone in the one that designs the architecture probably has to know a bit of FinOps to be able to understand what's going on and what the costs are going on. Someone has to be the responsible of that within the teams. But the FinOps team is the one that makes the policies related to costs, make the indications about what you should do and what should you do not. It's like a security team. When you are in a company, you have a security team that tells you you shouldn't open port 2022 because it's SSH to everything. You cannot open whatever ports because it's a security breach, and you get an alert and everything is like you are doing something wrong, or you have exposed some credentials, blah blah. For me, it's the same thing. It's the same system. Like someone in your team has to be aware of security, and the guardrails are provided by a central team. So this is the same but for cost. It's a pretty easy model to mirror it. Um, and that's how I see it. And then within the FinOps team, there would be several roles, like the ones that analyze, because maybe if you have the centralized billing data, which probably make more sense, like someone does the analysis and then they do chargeback and showback and everything. Um, that's the data analyst. So it has all the data, so it can detect patterns, it can highlight things, and it can do tools regarding the data. Then there would be some engineering people that will be able to create solutions and to develop some scripts that other parts of the company can reuse, and all of that, so are dedicated to that. And then they are the leadership that coordinates all the initiatives, plus managing, I don't know if you need a tool or if you need someone else or all of that. So there are all the different things. And then there
cool.
will probably be someone in product that helps the other product people to be able to be aware of cost instead of, I don't know, resiliency or something. So same like with security. I would say the model is pretty similar to what security is today, but security is much more advanced in terms of consideration because was considered before costs for whatever reason. But that's kind of my thought.
Thank you very much.
Uh,
Thank you. Very, very nice.
Do you have any comments on that one, Anshu?
Yeah, I was just I have some thoughts on that. So like Isam was asking, right? So it made me recall one instance. Like let's say someone is an analyst in a FinOps space, and you mentioned that it works differently in a bank or in a automobile company or airlines, right? And let's say a person who is new joining starting a first FinOps job, that person identifies that okay, there are some underutilized instances, and maybe we can save money if then shut them down. So that actually triggered my line train of thought. So a couple of years back, I was working in a bank merger project. I was working with EY, and we were the consultants for a banking merger in India. So one
Mm-hmm.
big bank, government bank, and it was absorbing two smaller government banks. And in banks, there are many applications, and it used to have an internet banking application. It used to have a mobile banking application, and of course, internet banking application was developed first. Mobile banking came later, and nowadays they see that mobile banking is hugely utilized. Everyone is using mobile to banking. Internet banking is lying idle. But in that case, if you do some analysis and say, okay, internet banking is, utilization is less, we scale them down, but you are required to have internet banking because there is some regulations, there is a
Yeah.
central authority which mandates you to do that. So even if you want, you have to maintain the database, you have to maintain the network periphery, all the policies are back, everything you have to maintain, even if the utilization is less. Maybe you can do some, and that was running on data center. That was not running on cloud. So they
Yeah.
they did not have any show back, charge back, nothing of that sort was there. But of course, you mentioned that the FinOps in a bank will be different than FinOps in an airline. So that's what triggered my thought. Good
Yeah.
perspective.
Yeah, we when we were talking, we had a podcast in with a Spanish lead from a huge bank, and we were talking about the same, like the data retention policies, the relationship policy. So you have to fulfill certain things, security things. So a lot of criteria are there. So for example, things for when I think in this is a Spanish regulation, but something will happen globally is that telecommunications companies like phone providers, internet providers, they need to have the logs from the calls at least for X years. So they need to make
Right.
that store. So you need to have a life cycle in place. So to be able to store that, but you cannot delete that information because it's you need that requirement, and this is a
Yes.
so you need to have it. It's like when you architect a solution, you need to make it as efficient as possible with the requirements that you have. So telecommunication companies will have that one, and then others will have another one. So I don't know. It depends on the companies, but it will someone will need more SLAs or higher
Yes.
SLAs. So it costs more every nine that you put there. It costs more. Someone will have less. So we came to know that Ryanair does a lot of spot instances, so they are very very good at the spot instances because they have to play with the margins, but they still have to be reliable. So because they cannot have problems in their ticketing part because otherwise they are losing money. But they are able to balance all of this. After all, it's a thing of trade-off, like cost, speed, and quality. It's something that you cannot. It's difficult to break that the triangle, so you can move one to the other and then find a like the middle solution. Or if you need to prioritize something, then you will have to, think about costs later on if it's not a priority because it needs to go first. It's all about the value of the to the company. It's all about value, business value. So, and you need to prioritize what brings business value to the company, whether it's cost or it's speed or it's quality, and then you can focus on the other ones. That's kind of the idea.
Yeah. And both of you are in Europe. I just want to understand your perspective. Like you are in Czech Republic, like Isam, and you are in Spain. So there are smaller cloud players in your countries as well, like OVH, like Orange and T-Mobile and all those things.
Yeah.
So do you see FinOps adoption or FinOps push from smaller players, or is it only AWS or Azure that pushes this, creates the thought leadership or brings the new frameworks and concepts? Because many of the things come from California. Many of the come from across the Atlantic to the US.
Yeah, but it's
Across to
because
here.
they have more cost, so they have more problems. They are more pushed to do FinOps, basically. So like they need to be efficient because otherwise they lose their clients. So you need to become efficient. The good thing about these cloud providers that you mentioned, the OVH, what Lidl, that this Hetzner, DigitalOcean, all these, let's say, more cloud independent solutions that are not the hyperscalers,
Mhm.
is that they are simpler and they are normally cheaper, but they have a different way of doing things. So they will probably start with they started with the FinOps in terms that they are much more simpler to understand the cost. It's much more plain. The only problem is that they don't have all the services. But it
Mhm.
definitely is going to be all the FinOps is going to arrive to everything. So thanks to
Yeah.
initiatives such as Focus and things like that, is that you can analyze the data from every provider, whatever you use it, OVH or anything like that. That would be the ideal. And then FinOps will be applied to everything. The problem is that if you change, so anything that is changing or more advanced, which tends to happen, um, is going to be a new thing to learn. Let me explain that. So in AWS, you need to configure the start and stop a certain way. You need some script or you need to add certain configuration that does it a certain way. If you need to do it in Azure, it's a different thing. If you need to do it in GCP, it's a different thing. It's similar and the idea is similar, but the configuration is different.
Right. Right.
And the steps are different. They are not the same UI. So, or the same code or the same Terraform. So what happens is that new providers, new way to do things, new way to do things, there will be the content, there will be the code to do that, there will be the formation to do that. So that's the benefit that the hyperscalers have. And that's kind of where I see that FinOps. So they will be the good thing for them would be to focus on cloud agnostic solutions, so like Kubernetes. So if you are able to help your customers run Kubernetes easier, or VMs, or like Linux VMs, or anything that starts and stops or improves cloud agnostic workloads, then that's where you can have some leverage. Some cloud agnostic, mainly Kubernetes container things. And that would be really helpful because after all, the main cost of Kubernetes normally is not the managing the cluster, it's like the cost of managing the cluster itself is like the cost of the nodes. So definitely is
Yeah.
something that I would focus on as well. And then the commitments, I don't know how they handle the commitments, but that's like a whole different thing. I know that's kind of the leverage that these providers have. Like they are cheaper in terms of pricing for normal services like, I don't know, VMs or cloud storage or whatever.
And data transfer also, they do free data transfer as
Yeah, I know, but the data transfer itself, yeah, that's a cost that it could be really, really problematic in certain cases, and you need to be aware of. So yeah, that's something that is easier to understand for them. So that's kind of the way of I've heard some comments about that. Then they are not that cheap, or then you are compromise a bit, or it it has its trade-offs. So we'll see, but definitely it's going to be interesting, like how other providers will be in place, because I think it's a great model, like a business model that is easy to, well, not easy, but it's profitable. So we'll see how that goes now with more of the regional things, like people don't wanted to having data control by providers because Europe and things like that. Maybe regional providers came to place. I don't know, like Hetzner or OVH Cloud or all these things. So that could be interesting as well. Like if those type of things use any open source kind of things or any cloud agnostic kind of things, that would be interesting to see how that evolves. Yeah,
Great, great. Thanks for perspective.
I would say that's an interesting question. Like I haven't thought about that. Like even though I commented it out with someone that I don't recall, it's interesting to see what's going on with the providers in terms of regional things, data centers, all this stuff. So I am assuming there is probably some leverage that on FinOps they could do, especially with comparisons and cost comparisons and cost
Yeah.
calculators and migration things and all of that. I'm not sure how it goes as of right now, but it would be interesting to see what's going on because everyone that is interested in the FinOps, they will probably consider, I don't know, migration of certain workloads to a cheaper
Yep.
I don't know, provider, for example, for storage or data heavy. Like if the network costs are a problem, then they can leverage another provider. Yeah, that's interesting.
But also you have to take into consideration, I think, the commitment for that specific cloud,
Yeah.
because you have to reach that specific commitment. So if you move some workload, you have to make sure you're reaching your commitment and things along those lines.
Yeah, that's the main problem. Is like if the effort is worth while, like if firstly like the manpower or the time that needs to be migrated makes sense because of the cost, and then what commitments have you done with the providers, and then also like if you need to make a commitment with the new provider and if that's going to be inefficient for you. That's something that it seems to be happening with the startups. It's like they change provider because they get some offer from sales or from whatsoever about credits, and then when they stay like for a year or something, they notice that they lost money because the migration efforts plus the cost is not that cheaper. So that's something as well to be taken into account.
Interesting.
Yeah, I've been hearing some comments around those and around that as well from people that these tend to happen. That's a bit of why there is an initiative of repatriation or like why you shouldn't go to cloud and blah blah blah. So that's something in that lines that is an interesting debate, even though I'm not sure if the debate is totally accurate, but there's definitely something there. Like the cloud is for some companies are a problem, and for certain workloads, they doesn't make sense.
I'm seeing a lot of comments on LinkedIn, people commenting, "Hey, maybe it's time to move to on-prem, and I'll help you with that." So
Yeah, so one thing is because of data restrictions, and then other thing is so like data being in certain places, and other thing is AI, like GPUs and all this stuff. People are trying to have their own things to try and train, and then the other thing is like they probably make a bad decision in terms of moving the cloud or how they move the cloud, the things to cloud, and now they are rolling back because they didn't make any update of their workload. So they are different things, and those are interesting. So we'll see how that goes. I don't think there is especially so to move and go back. I think it doesn't make a lot of sense,
Yep.
but or you did something really really wrong or you did like totally omit something, but I don't think with a efficient workload I don't think there is a huge difference to have it in one thing or the other, and there are things that you cannot do on premise, like you cannot do as
Yeah.
far as I know. Serverless things or all this stuff. I'm not sure if there is a thing that you can do with OpenStack or anything else, but serverless is kind of a thing that is really, really good for cloud
Yeah.
efficiency and not only for massive scale or spot instances. You cannot do that.
Yes. Yeah. Guys, I will have to drop now. We're at the top of the hour, right?
Yeah, we are on the top of the hour. So thanks for having this week's call. I'll see you next week. It was a pleasure to start with this initiative. It's been only the three of us, but I think it was great to have the talk, and probably next time more people will join. I will set it next week. Like probably if you are fine with it, I will upload the video because I don't think
Yes.
there is nothing to remove
Yeah.
because and that's it. We can share with people and see how it goes for next week.
Perfect. Thank you
Sure,
very much
sure.
for this fruitful initiative and for the fruitful talk.
Yeah,
Yeah.
same to
Thank
you
you. Thank
guys.
you.
A pleasure to share your things, and it was great hearing from you and putting your faces as well.
Thank you very much. Really
Cheers.
appreciate
Cheers.
it. I wish
Cheers.
you a very lovely weekend ahead. Thank you.
Hey,
See
you
you next
too.
Yeah.
week, everyone.
Yeah.
Bye
Have a
bye.
good weekend. Thank
Good
you.
day.
Bye.